Hey friends of Quarkus, this is Niko, and today in this episode of my Quarkus video series, I'm talking about how to deploy our HTTP-based Quarkus service to AWS Lambda for having serverless fun. So in one of the last videos, we talked about how to create an HTTP-based service in Quarkus with the Funqy extension. So the Funqy extension, for all the ones of you who don't know, is a simple HTTP abstraction for building quick and easy HTTP-based services, especially for usage in serverless environments. And today we want to deploy it to AWS Lambda. Let's have a look what we have to do. And before we start, we do a short recap of the other video, which I also link in the description of this video and also here in the upper right corner. So let's do the small recap. We have a Quarkus-based Funqy application. So we had the code starter of Quarkus, and we picked the Funqy HTTP binding for building Funqy HTTP services. And we had this in our POM, where we have the Quarkus Funqy HTTP extension as a dependency. And we built a function with the @func annotation, dealing with JSON-only types. So Funqy is JSON-only, no other media types. You can have a map or JSON or an object as an input parameter, and also as a return type, map or an object or whatever. And you can also deal with injecting other services like CDI. You have this by hand. And we have this service, afterwards we made a Java build. We made a native build with native artifacts without the JVM at runtime. And we built Docker container for the JVM-based service and the native service. We powered up the Docker containers and saw that they are running. So of course, you can take these Docker containers and put them to your environment, like Kubernetes or whatever. And but you can also deploy the function directly to AWS Lambda, for example. And that's what we want to do today. So back to the code starter. If you filter it for Funqy, you also see the Funqy AWS Lambda binding, but that's not the extension what we need today. That's the extension if you build Funqy-based Lambda functions dealing with internal events like S3 event, SNS, SQS messages, or whatever. Everything's internal of AWS. But if you want to have a function with a public HTTP interface for the API gateway, you need the HTTP binding, which you already have, and you need the regular Lambda. I have to spell it correctly. The AWS Lambda HTTP extension to deploy applications to Lambda which are HTTP based and have an API gateway. So we need this extension. I prepared it already and I have to activate it in the POM file. So I have the Quarkus Amazon Lambda HTTP, and this extension is for deploying all the stuff to AWS, nothing for coding, just for deploying. To start with our deployment of the service, of the Quarkus service, we first need to have a build, and we do this with a clean Maven package. So I'm doing the Java-based version for now because it's much more faster than the native version. And so that's it already, 5 seconds. And let's have a look what the build gave us. We have the jar file with the code we wrote on ourselves, we developed. That's a pretty small jar file, 6 kilobytes. Then we have the runner jar, of course. That's all our own code and the augmented code from Quarkus, which Quarkus needs to optimize all the code for build time optimization and to speed up at runtime. And then we have the function zip file containing all the stuff we need to run the function, the service in JVM. So all the libs contained in the lib folder also are contained in the zip file. It's complete everything we need to run. And also there is some JVM YAML and some native YAML file generated. And these files are for deploying to AWS Lambda. And Quarkus comes with this convenience to give us a very good template where we can start the deployment to AWS. So what is this SAM? SAM is a serverless application model from AWS, and it comes with a nice Squirrel. And the serverless application model is a superset of the CloudFormation, the infrastructure as code at AWS. And as CloudFormation is a bit inflated and sometimes a bit gossip, you have to define much YAML code and much overhead. You always have to repeat, and that's not fun. So AWS comes with the serverless application model, which is a superset and which aims for much more simplicity while defining your deployment descriptor. And SAM comes with a lot of defaults, which you need when dealing with serverless applications. So this is the regular website of SAM, and there's also, of course, comprehended documentation. So let's have a look to these SAM files, what they are, what's contained. We take the JVM YAML file for now, because we're deploying our Java-based function. And you see it looks like CloudFormation, but much more simple. And so this is some global definitions. We have a regional endpoint for the API gateway for our HTTP requests. And then we have the resources section with our Funqy demo service, the function itself. It's a serverless function. And it runs at Java 11 runtime. The function zip file we created in our build will be uploaded. It's already contained in this template. That's a convenience from Quarkus we get. The handler is a Quarkus internal handler, the Quarkus stream handler, which is responsible for handling all the requests from API gateway from AWS internal, and mapping these events to the various different methods in our Funqy application or in our Quarkus application. So you don't have to implement your own handler, just use the Quarkus stream handler, and this will dispatch the request or the event to the right method we implemented. So there's also a Lambda basic execution role for having the basic IAM policies and rights for executing Lambda functions, so that it's possible. And we have the event definition. It's an API gateway, and on every path, this proxy plus is kind of a wildcard, a template for all paths, will be mapped with any method to our Quarkus stream handler class. And output will be the URL where the REST service or the Quarkus service will be available publicly. So before we package and deploy our application, we can also test it locally. For example, we can say SAM local and start API with a template we just got generated. And if we start this, Then a container will be started in the background, and we will be able to access it at port 3000, and just try to run it. This is our HTTP client from last time. Just put in the port 3000. The query is still the same, name is John, and we send it. It will take a bit because the SAM local is always connecting to the application when a request starts. So there's no running request in the background. There's no pre-warmed, no whatever in the background. Every single request you do will be create a new mapping of your application to the SAM local environment, but it's pretty the same environment like it's when you deploy it to AWS Lambda to the cloud. So you see from the Quarkus banner, the Quarkus application will be started or is being started with our funky demo application, and we have a GET request, hello, name is John, and we got also the response in here. It took about 10 seconds. And even if we look at the log file, in Lambda itself, it took about 8 seconds for a request to start. That's pretty long, but it's only for testing. You shouldn't run an environment with SAM local. It's just for local testing. If your function behaves in the right way as you wish in the Lambda environment. So you can test it before uploading it, before deploying it, before producing costs actually. Another request will be even as long because again it will be mapped again to the container, and so we have again 9 seconds. So for Lambda itself it took nearly 8 seconds. Yeah. So after testing, we can focus on deploying and packaging, or first packaging and then deploying. So we can do a packaging with the template file, the SAM JVM YAML file we get created by Quarkus. And we will produce an output template file. We call it packaged. For later use, for actually deployment. And during packaging phase, we will upload the function zip to a S3 bucket, which is named as Niko Quarkus demo in this case. We'll just do it. And then we'll see Sam will create a random unique identifier for the artifact, for the function zip file, which will be uploaded to our S3 bucket. And the packaged YAML file is being created. So let's have a look to this packaged YAML file first, before we deploy the service actually. This is packaged YAML, and it looks quite the same as the generated template, with one difference. The code URI is not only the function zip file, but it is the URI to the S3 bucket with the random identifier of the uploaded function. So when we deploy it, SAM and CloudFormation will know from where to get the source code from which S3 bucket to deploy it to Lambda actually. The rest of the file is pretty the same. So let's do a deployment. The packaging was only the first step. We have to execute the deployment itself. And we have to use our template file, generator template file. It's the packaged YAML. And we'll have to specify a stack name for CloudFormation, because SAM uses CloudFormation, of course. and where we can find this Quarkus demo, and we have to specify some IAM capabilities because we're dealing with IAM resources like the policy, the role we specified in the YAML file. So if we run this deploy, will take some seconds because CloudFormation is not the fastest tool we can get for deploying things in the cloud. And let's have a look what's happening. We get a list of all the resources which will be created by CloudFormation. We have the permissions for the Lambda, so that the Lambda function is able to run. The role will be created with the right policies. The actual Lambda function will be deployed. The API gateway deployment. There's a special stage in the API gateway, and the REST API, and all this stuff will be created for us. And you see the several steps, which is in progress, what is completed. And after a while, we see it's finished. And here's our URL under which our service is available. This is a random identifier for the API gateway. And then we have the API gateway hostname execute API in the region of our choice. And the prod is the stage we deployed it. So I showed you in the above list, there's an API gateway, a stage. And we deployed it to the prod stage. So the prod stage is the default stage. When you use SAM, you can specify other stages as you like. And the stage will always be part of the path you get. So we can copy this URL and go to our REST client and replace the URL in here. Of course, also the hello function. And let's take something else like AWS Lambda and send it. So the first time, again, it takes some seconds because of the cold startup latency, but it's much more faster than at my local machine. 4 seconds for the first request, and then all subsequent requests will be much more faster, only a few milliseconds, around 40 milliseconds in this case. And yeah, we get our response, hello Lambda. Great. This is all you need to deploy an HTTP-based Quarkus service, whether it's Funqy or not, it's REST API-based to AWS Lambda. And of course, you can deploy every other HTTP service in the same manner to AWS Lambda with using SAM. Remember this this YAML template. This is generated as a template from Quarkus, and you can use it as a good starter point to add all the other resources you need for your serverless application to this YAML file, and save it in a special folder to add it to your repository, to your code versioning, so that you have a good template for containing all the resources you need, like DynamoDB, like SNS topics, SQS queues, whatever you need, whatever you can define with CloudFormation, all the resources in AWS in this SAM template, because it's a superset of CloudFormation, and you can define everything from CloudFormation in this file, and you can deploy with this your serverless application. So have fun with it and try it out. Thanks for watching. I hope you had some fun. Leave me some thumbs up here, share my video, tell me what you think about in the comments. Also, if you have some questions, put it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you won't any of my other videos, and see you next time. Bye.